Chapter 78. Not to mention Sunny Jia and her mother. When Jingwan returned to the Luo family, as expected, the Luo family, Yuan family, and Zhou family had all arrived. The ones leading them were the three young ladies' old mothers. Presumably, these families had either made an appointment or coincidentally followed behind Dingwa Gongfu. As such, no one could find fault. When Zhang Shi saw Jingwan, she began to cry. "You're not allowed to cry," Jingwan said helplessly. Zhang Shi's tears that were about to fall were held back by her. She looked at Jingwan with reddened eyes, looking somewhat pitiful. If it was the first time she saw it, she probably couldn't help but soften, but Jingwan had long been immune to her appearance. "Mother, I'm very tired and sleepy right now. I'm going to sleep for a while. I haven't eaten Mother's cooking for so many years. Why don't Mother take advantage of this time to make some for me? Wait for me to get up to eat. Okay? Okay. Okay." Zhang Shi quickly nodded. "Quickly go to sleep?" And Jingwan smiled. After Zhang Shi left, she finally showed her fatigue. "Mama, when I came back, which family did I see those people? They should be the family of the Prime Minister, Wandarin. I forgot to tell Miss that at that time, it was that evil creature that first collided with the carriage of Wandarin's daughter. Miss Ruan's carriage went down from the mountain. Although it was closer to the inside, it still fell off the cliff. After Miss Ruan was thrown out of the carriage, she happened to land on a clump of vines. Therefore, she wasn't seriously injured, but she seemed to be frightened and didn't wake up. Ruan Fengfei, who is as famous as Jiajie? This is great. In the capital, other than those daughters of the imperial family, the two most valuable and also the most outstanding young ladies were injured together. I don't know what will happen. Fortunately, Jiajie didn't care much about the disfigurement. However, with the assassination of Jin Qinhuang as a front, she thought that this matter wouldn't stir up any waves. Forget it. It's not my turn to care about this matter. Jingwan rubbed her temples. She went back to her room and asked the maid to help her change her clothes. Buddhism was a sacred place, so she had to be a little careful. Although it was not so comfortable to sleep in clothes, she fell asleep soon after she lay on the bed. Jingwan slept all the way until it was time to light the lantern. She slept very soundly and showed no signs of waking up, which scared the group of people again. They thought that there was some hidden injury that they could not see. Madame Zhang had also brought the house doctor, so there was no need to trouble Great Master Liaochen. Fortunately, the house doctor was certain that Jingwan had fallen asleep due to exhaustion. Once she had enough sleep, she would naturally wake up. After Jingwan woke up, her spirit came back. She only felt hungry. As soon as she woke up, Qing Lan, who was guarding beside her, naturally noticed it immediately. "Miss, you're finally awake. Well, prepare some food. I'm hungry," Jingwan ordered as she got up and washed. "Before you fell asleep, didn't you say that you wanted to eat the food made by Madam? Madam made a lot, but you didn't wake up." Then she made it again and again several times. She hoped that you could eat the most delicious food when you wake up. "Now, it should be ready," Qing Lan explained. Jingwan suddenly felt a little guilty. She originally just wanted to send Madame Zhang away and find something for her to do, so that she would not be sad and distressed. She did not want her to be busy all the time. Hearing the movement in the room, people outside came in one after another. Soon, Madame Zhang came in with the food in person. "Wan, you're finally awake. You must be hungry. Hurry up and taste it. I don't know if the food I made now is to your taste." She probably also knew about Jingwan's situation, so she did not care about her injury. "Mother, you've worked hard. As long as it's made by you, I like it. It's not hard. If you like it, eat more." Madame Zhang sat at the side and watched her eat. From time to time, she would pick up food for her. In fact, Madame Zhang's cooking was average, but the meaning was different. In addition, Jingwan was really hungry, so she ate a lot. Madame Zhang also knew that the food she cooked was not very good, but whether it was in Qi and prefecture or now, her daughter always gave her face. She was naturally happy, unlike that bastard Jingbo. When he was young, he would spit it out when he ate. Now, he would put down his chopsticks after eating 2 mouthfuls. However, she was still quite self-aware. She only cooked occasionally. She could not poison her daughter just because she gave her face. Mother's cooking has improved a lot. Half of it was the truth, and half of it was to coax Madame Zhang. Really? Madame Zhang was very surprised. Her son and her husband did not say a word about her cooking, let alone like it. Mother will cook for you in the future. Okay. The maidservants put away the things on the table and rinsed their mouths. Jingwan sat there and chatted with Madame Zhang. Although Madame Zhang had all kinds of shortcomings, she also had her good points. She was very patient with her children. Moreover, because she was simple-minded, you could talk to her as you wished. Of course, it was all trivial things that did not take much effort. She would always listen with a gentle smile and respond to you. After that, she might not remember a word of what she said, but the whole process was very relaxed. Mother, it's getting late. You should go back and rest first. She knew that Madame Zhang did not have much to do and did not have anything to worry about. Her schedule was very regular. Mother is not sleepy yet. It's not too late to go back and rest when I'm sleepy. I just woke up and won't go back to sleep for a while. I know that Mother wants to accompany me, but I have a lot of people here. If it's not enough, I can still read. Madame Zhang was still a little hesitant. Madam, go back and rest first. The old madam still has something to do and is waiting for Miss to go over. Mama Gong spoke up at the right time. Mama, why didn't you say so earlier? It's a sin to let the old madam wait for so long. Madame Zhang said helplessly. It's okay. The old madam has slept a lot during the day and is in good spirits now. She knows that you are here, so it's not too late to let the two of you talk. Then Wan, hurry over. Don't let the old madam wait for too long. I'll go back first. Okay. After the maidservants sent Madame Zhang out, Jingwan spoke again. Mama, grandmother really has something to talk to me about? Yes, Mississippi. The old madam has been waiting for you. Then go over now. I also have something to talk to grandmother about. Jingwan guessed that grandmother should already know about Jin Qinhuang's matter. It must be known that the assassination of a prince or Qinhuang was not an ordinary matter and would definitely be reported to the emperor. Then, 10 out of 10 people in the court would also know. It was normal for grandfather to let her mother bring a letter over. After all, Bai Long Temple was the place where Jin Qinhuang was assassinated. Grandfather was not the kind of person who would absolutely not tell grandmother about the court matters. His purpose was also very simple. If grandmother knew, then ask about the specific matters. If she didn't know, then just let her know. After all, even if Bai Long Temple was calm on the surface, she was afraid that the undercurrent was surging behind the scenes. It was just that the matter between her and Jin Qinhuang, she didn't know if he had found grandmother yet. When she saw the old Madame Luo, Jingwan saw that her expression was slightly heavy. Her guess was probably right. Grandmother, Wan is here. Come over quickly. You all can withdraw. She pulled Jingwan to her side and waved the servants to withdraw. Have you rested well? And where's grandmother? Grandmother is fine. Take a look at this. Old Madame Luo handed a letter that was pressed to the side to Jingwan. Jingwan did not hesitate and directly opened it. As expected, it was just, Jin Qinhuang's whereabouts are still unknown. Whether he is alive or dead is unknown? Yes, at least before your mother and the others left the capital had not received the news. It shouldn't be. It was reasonable to say that Jin Qinhuang should have returned to Bai Long Temple before her. Even if he was worried that there were still assassins lurking in the dark here, he should have at least informed the emperor about it. Or, the emperor deliberately concealed his whereabouts and used this as a pretext to make a fuss, ruthlessly hammering or weakening the power of the person behind the scenes. This was not impossible. Although the rumors about Jin Qinhuang were mostly negative, it was well known that although he had no power, he was deeply favored by the emperor. How can Wan say that? Is there something wrong? It's like this. Jingwan concealed her intimacy with Jin Qinhuang and told the rest in full detail to old Madame Luo. From the beginning, she did not intend to hide this matter from old Madame Luo. If there was any movement on Jin Qinhuang's side, she could not hide it even if she wanted to. Even if Jin Qinhuang agreed to her idea and did not do anything, she did not want to hide it. After all, her knowledge in this world was limited. Perhaps there were some hidden rules that she did not know. Who knew if she would inadvertently violate some taboo? especially when the reason for her meeting with Jin Qinhuang was an assassination. If something happened in the future and she did not know the reason, then it would not be worth it. With old Madame Luo watching over things with her, it was different. She could always consider all aspects. Even if he could not, there was still grandfather. Old Madame Luo's face became heavy after hearing this. It was related to Wan's reputation. She had to be serious. But it was useless to think about it now. She had to wait for Jin Qinhuang's attitude. Wan did not do anything wrong, but grandmother is worried that if Jin Qinhuang wants to take you into the fu, grandmother does not need to worry about things that have no shadow. If it really comes to that step, then what should be done will be done. If a dignified Qinhuang wants a small girl in the boudoir, we still have the right to refuse. Perhaps Jin Qinhuang saw that I saved him, or perhaps I am not up to the standard of a beauty in his eyes, and just let it go. I hope so. It seemed that it could only be like this now. More importantly, it could not be related to the assassination. Wait until dawn tomorrow. Grandmother will go back and discuss with your grandfather to let your mother stay here. Xiao Qiao and Miss Zhou cannot be moved for the time being. Jia Jia will not return to the capital for a while. You should also stay at White Dragon Temple for a few more days. I will listen to grandmother. Other people outside could not hear what the grandmother and granddaughter were saying, but Gong Mama was clear. She thought, "Old madam, why don't you bring Miss back to the capital?" Others did not know, but she knew that the living king of hell was now holed up in White Dragon Temple. It was just that he had moved from his previous residence. His guards on the surface could not see him, so they naturally sent people to look for him outside. Other than that body full of injuries, no one knew how free and unfettered he was living. Wherever he was, it was like a tiger's den or a wolf's den for Mississippi. You left the delicious food that he longed for in his mouth. Did you feel that he did not live fast enough? According to Gong Mama's understanding of him, she was afraid that as long as Miss was in White Dragon Temple, he would not appear to the outside world and would always be in a missing state. During this period of time, the emperor would certainly have more white hair, and the unlucky ones would naturally be the courtiers. Gong Mama shed tears of sympathy for the emperor when she met such a deceitful son. Gong Mama shed tears of sympathy for the courtiers when she met such a reckless prince. Gong Mama shed tears of sympathy for the courtiers when she met such a willful monarch. Thinking of this, Granny Gong felt much better. Although what he did to the young lady was inappropriate, he didn't really hurt the young lady. His original intention was not to play around. Jingwan chatted with old Madame Luo for a while, more before returning. There was no entertainment at night in this world. If one did not sleep, they could only read books. In a temple, scriptures were naturally the most common. Buddhist scriptures were difficult to understand, and it was good enough that she could understand most of them. Jingwan felt that she had no chance to understand the deeper meaning of Zen. She was bored at first, but after calming down, she was able to read. While Jingwan was reading, Li Hongyuan was also reading all kinds of information gathered. This living king of hell had taken over a magpie's nest and tyrannically kicked Master Liaochen out. That was not all. He even complained that everything in the meditation room had been used and completely replaced. Fortunately, Master Liaochen was magnanimous and did not bicker with him. He turned and leisurely went to another meditation room. Master Liaochen did not live in White Dragon Temple, but in a fairyland-like valley in the back of the mountain. Apart from the acolytes in charge of cleaning, no pilgrims or anyone else would set foot here. Master Liaochen himself was usually in the temple during the day. It was rare to see Li Hongyuan come to White Dragon Temple all year round. In everyone's eyes, Master Liaochen treated everyone equally. No one expected the two to have such a deep friendship. Coupled with Master Liaochen's respect, they would not find this place even if they turned the entire White Dragon Temple upside down. Li Hongyuan flipped through the letters one by one. In the capital, the reactions of his brothers, his father, and the reactions of the ministers were all complete. These things did not exceed his expectations and were all within his grasp. Therefore, he only glanced at them and then threw them to the side without any further questions. The last one was naturally related to Jingwan. Because of Jingwan's accidental fall from the cliff, more people had been sent to protect her. However, they were all in the dark, and it would be difficult for them to protect her in close quarters. It seemed that he had to find a way to send 2 more people to protect her. Li Hongyuan flipped to the next page. Eunuch Mu sensed the change in his mood. He thought to himself, isn't he safely back at White Dragon Temple? Did something happen? Li Hongyuan flicked the letter with his finger. In the future, this prince will not only have to guard against men, but also women. Eunuch Mu resisted the urge to wipe his sweat. He did not need to think too much to know what his master was thinking. To guard against men, he naturally had to guard against those around Miss Luo. As for women, there were many women who wanted to climb into his master's bed. Of course, he had to guard against them. However, wasn't this something he had been doing for a long time? Eunuch Mu thought carefully. No, there was no woman who wanted to climb into his master's bed that deserved his master's protection. Speaking of which, if there were men who liked men, there should also be women who liked women. Could it be Muan? It's easy to guard against men around Wan, but how can we guard against women? Master, this servant is stupid. This servant really doesn't know such a difficult thing. Eunuch Mu only dared to think this way. Master, I'm afraid it won't work. Why? Miss Luo needs someone to serve her. Yes, he only thought of the women outside. What about the women around Wan? They served her closely. When she bathed and changed clothes, they had already seen Wan's naked body. He had not seen it twice. The more he thought about it, the more gloomy he became. He even had the impulse to immediately pull out all the people around Jingwan and chop them into pieces. This vinegar jar was simply overturned inexplicably. This prince will ask my father to grant me a marriage on the grounds of saving your life this time. What do you think? Good. There was no better idea than this. Master, you should drag Miss Luo back to your nest as soon as possible. No, you should marry her back to the prince's mansion. Then, everyone will be happy. It will be a celebration. Master, please think twice. Eunuch Mu said insincerely. Li Hongyuan raised his head and glanced at him indifferently. Eunuch Mu was so shocked that he almost broke out in a cold sweat. Wan's status is not enough. Under normal circumstances, she doesn't even have the qualifications to be a Cifei. Even if this matter is used to ask for a marriage, at most, she will only be a Cifei. Even if Jin Xinwang Fu only has her as the rightful master in the future, Wan will probably not be happy. Bin Wang will also not be happy. Li Hongyuan said as if talking to himself. Exactly. So, master, you can only continue to hold it in. We can only continue to endure. Bin Wang knows that you are all looking forward to Bin Wang marrying Wan as soon as possible. Bin Wang also wants to. Unfortunately, Bin Wang does not have the final say in this world. I can only speed up and make my father despair about Bin Wang's marriage and let Wan become the only candidate. So, who would be the next unlucky person? Sunny Jia is also too idle. That's why she would stick to Wan all day. Master, the other girl is already disfigured. It's the time when she's heartbroken. Can you not use underhanded methods? Muan, do you have any objections to Bin Wang's decision? No, Master's decision cannot be more brilliant. They only had one objective. Master's decision was never wrong. Call old monk Liao Chen over. Bin Wang has something to ask him. From the way he addressed Great Master Liao Chen, it was clear that Wang Ye had a lot of objections to him. Moreover, it's time to sleep. You slept all day, and now that you're awake, you're tormenting others? It wasn't far to begin with, so Great Master Liao Chen arrived rather quickly. Ba, Wang Ye summoned me. What orders do you have? Li Hongyuan put one hand on his bent knee, and the other leg stretched out naturally. His sitting posture was casual and languid as he slightly raised his chin to look at Great Master Liao Chen. Great Master can see through everything. How can you not know why Bin Wang is looking for you? Wang Ye overpraises me. This poor monk is only a mortal. How can I see through everything? Li Hongyuan curled his lips in a mocking smile. Great Master didn't see that Bin Wang was about to face this bloody disaster? Would your Highness not have been injured if this poor monk had told you? This isn't a disaster for your Highness. Your Highness's face is filled with joy. Li Hongyuan had to admit that Great Master Liao Chen was right. The main reason was that he had vented his anger on Wan when she fell off the cliff. Great Master should have met Wan already. What do you think? Forgive this poor monk for speaking bluntly, But Miss Luo is pure and kind. It's a pity she's a match for your highness. That's not something a great master should say. However, the great master only said that this prince is sinful and cruel by nature. His heart, liver, and lungs are all black. It is precisely because of this that this prince should have a woman like Wan by his side. This prince is only willing to be bound by her and be restrained by her. Wan is a woman who is soft on the outside but strong on the inside. It is easy for her to attract the attention of men and attract the jealousy of other women. Without this prince's protection, even if she uses 1,000 methods, it will be difficult for her to avoid their schemes. You should say that we're a match made in heaven. Li Hongyuan didn't hold back at all when it came to flattering himself. Great Master Liao Chun nodded in agreement. Great Master, you still haven't answered this prince's question. Her original fate has been broken. Her new fate isn't clear. Overall, it seems smooth, but there may be some twists and turns. It's good that it's broken. If this prince can break it, then her future will be smooth and without twists and turns. From what your highness says, you should know Miss Luo's original fate. Great Master, even if you don't know everything, you should know. There's no need to say more. Li Hongyuan never thought that he would be able to hide his rebirth from Great Master Liao Chun. Ba. Of course. Wan has been plagued with misfortune recently. Great Master, please help her resolve it. This prince doesn't want anything else. Just give her the red sandalwood prayer beads in your hand. Your highness is as blunt as ever. Great Master Liao Chun seemed helpless. This prince thought you'd be used to it by now. If you're not, then it's better to get used to it. After all, who knows how many similar incidents will happen in the future. Then as your highness wishes. I'll give the prayer beads to Miss Luo in 2 days. Li Hongyuan was a little surprised. He had only asked Master Liaochen for the prayer beads casually. He didn't have much hope. His goal was to make it easier for him to bargain. If he couldn't get the best thing he had for Wan, he would at least ask for something that was a little inferior. After all, it was rumored that the prayer beads were very important to Great Master Liao Chun. It was said that his master had given them to him when he first shaved. They had been in his possession for at least 100 years. Great Master Liao Chun was an old man over 100 years old. No one knew exactly how old he was, so naturally no one knew how long the prayer beads had been in his master's possession. Many people, including his imperial grandfather and father, had wanted the prayer beads but couldn't get their hands on them. Was he really that important? Great Master, you were going to give them to Wan? Miss Luo has an affinity with them. Li Hongyuan felt that he wouldn't be able to understand Buddhist affinity even if he were given several lifetimes. Then why wait 2 days? The blessing of Buddhism. Li Hongyuan paused. There weren't many things that could make him show such an expression. It seems that Wan has gained the Great Master's favor. Miss Luo has an affinity with Buddhism. https:///11/11807/6652960. Please wait patiently after reporting and refresh the page. Chapter 79. I think your highness is overthinking things. What I meant was that Miss Luo has the compassion of Buddha, not that she is fated with Buddhism. Your highness wishes to bestow upon her an indescribably noble fate. If one day Miss Luo really becomes a monk, it will be because of your highness. Reverend Liaochen was unperturbed by Li Hongyuan's anger and threats. Li Hongyuan snorted. Reverend, you probably won't live to see that day. Even if one day this prince is defeated, this prince will drag her down with him. In life, she will be this prince's woman, and in death, she will be this prince's soul. No one will be able to take her away from this prince. I will kill anyone who dares to stop me. Ba. Your highness's murderous nature is too strong. If you don't control it, you will only hurt yourself and others. Li Hongyuan sneered. What? Reverend, are you trying to enlighten this prince? Why don't you perform a divination for this prince and Wan? Just say that she is this prince's destined person and that we are a match made in heaven. After we are married, you can have her enlighten this prince. It will be much easier with half the effort. Your highness, are you sure you want me to perform a divination like this? When it comes to defying the heavens and changing one's fate, One must abide by the principle of gains and losses. If you gain something here, you will lose it elsewhere. Li Hongyuan's gaze sharpened. Reverend, are you saying that this prince and Wan are not a match made in heaven? I once said that your highness's actions have opened a path for you. But because your highness is changing your fate, even the path may change at any time. If your highness chooses to take this path, it will take time and effort. But because of your efforts, you will most likely achieve your goal. Your highness wants to take a shortcut and reach your goal in one step, but the outcome is still uncertain. Now that I am forcing it, it is already in the category of defying the heavens and changing your fate. If this matter goes smoothly, there will definitely be other matters that will not. Even the changes on the path will be delayed until after the goal is reached, and the future will become even more confusing. I think this is not what your highness wants. Others say that an old monk like you is so powerful, but this prince thinks that you are just Ozo. Umidba. Those are just rumors spread by outsiders. You can't take them seriously. In the future, when your highness obtains your wish, this humble monk will perform a divination for your highness to add flowers to the brocade. Li Hongyuan didn't refuse. Master Liaochen was such a revered figure that a single comment from him would be able to suppress many rumors. It was much more effective than a bloody suppression. Moreover, when the time came, Li Hongyuan wouldn't add blood to a happy occasion. Li Hongyuan had achieved his goal and chased Master Liaochen away. He'd completely forgotten whose territory this was. Fortunately, no one had seen his tyrannical behavior, or he would have been drowned by a mouthful of spit from each of them. How dare they treat Master Liaochen like this? Li Hongyuan didn't sleep, so naturally, no one around him could sleep. He called an Ai. Have you investigated the matter clearly? This subordinate is incompetent. Please forgive me, master. An Ai knelt on one knee with his head bowed. Ever since they'd followed their master, they'd rarely failed in any of their missions. But this time, they seemed to have stumbled. Had their master misjudged? No, it couldn't be. They'd never seen their master make a mistake. Then there's no need to investigate. Send someone to keep an eye on them.
Yes.
An had already prepared himself for punishment, but didn't expect it to be so easily brushed aside. Have you found out who the people sent by this prince's brothers are? Replying to master, including the people sent by his majesty, we've investigated thoroughly. We've confirmed it over and over again. There are no omissions. What they should know, what they shouldn't know, what they should do, and what they shouldn't do. You don't need this prince to teach you, do you? This subordinate understands. Please rest assured, master. After the matter was settled, Li Hongyuan had nothing to do in the latter half of the night. But at this time, he still didn't feel sleepy. Unknowingly, he walked out of the meditation room. Then, he couldn't help but look at the courtyard where the Luo family lived. Once, when she was thousands of miles away, he paid attention to her daily life from letters and paid attention to her growth. He was worried that she would become another person who was different from the one in his memory. When she arrived in the capital, he saw her with his own eyes and confirmed that she was still the original her. Although there was still a big gap from the appearance in his memory, the delicate and tender her was naturally more delightful than the one who'd suffered the hardships of wind and frost. When he couldn't see her, he could still try his best to restrain himself. It was nothing when it became a habit, but when she appeared in front of him, he couldn't help but want to reach out and touch her. When he touched her, his heart couldn't help but give birth to evil thoughts. The closer he got, the more he missed her. The closer he got, the more he wanted to get closer. He always couldn't stop wanting to get more from her. That obsession of his didn't fade because he was close to her. Instead, it became deeper and deeper. A person like him was very clear that this kind of obsession should be eliminated early. Unfortunately, he never thought of doing so. The reason why a weakness was called a weakness was because you didn't have the ability to protect it well. Unknowingly, he walked to the outside of the courtyard wall. Li Hongyuan hesitated for a moment, but still walked around the courtyard wall and entered through the circular arched door. It was quiet all around. This courtyard looked very big, but there were a lot of people. The masters could still occupy a side room, but the others could only squeeze together. Compared to when they were in the capital, when they visited the Luo family at night, the possibility of being discovered was much higher now. If Jin Xinhuang, who was rumored to still be missing, suddenly appeared at the place where the womenfolk were staying and was caught red-handed. The fun would certainly be big. The shadow guards behind him were trembling with fear, ready to run away at any time. There was no other way. Although it was quiet here, there were martial monks patrolling the night not far away. They were responsible for the safety of these guests. If they were alarmed, it wouldn't be a joke. Those martial monks were much more powerful than many of the guards in the noble courtyards of the capital. If they were to go against them, they would have to think twice. If it was only them, then it would be fine. The problem was that Bai Long Temple had many people who were specifically targeting Master. If they were exposed, Master, you have injuries. Even if your bones and internal organs weren't injured, the average person would have to lie in bed for 10 days to half a month. Even if you looked fine, you should at least endure it. Night raids one after another, they all felt that Master was outrageous, not to mention the Lady Protector. To meet such a master, how could it be so miserable? Gong Mama carried a lamp and stood in front of Jingwan's door. She coldly stared at the person who was getting closer and closer. Wang Ye came here in the middle of the night. Enough, this prince will just look at her. I won't do anything. Li Hongyuan impatiently waved his hand to interrupt her. If it weren't for the fact that she was wholeheartedly devoted to Wan Wan, he would have directly sent her to see her biological mother. After all, she was her first master, and she was also indebted to her for saving her life. However, when he thought of serving her in close quarters, he couldn't help but think of the previous problem. Thus, his gaze towards Gong Mama became sharper. Gong Mama was very suspicious of his words, but she saw that his expression was becoming more and more unfriendly. Moreover, there was something else in his eyes. Why did it seem like she was his greatest enemy? She was just blocking the door. It shouldn't be to this extent, right? Gong Mama took a step back. Li Hongyuan entered the room and directly walked to the bedside. Because this was a place reserved for female guests, the decorations in the room weren't very rigid. However, there were still many things that weren't there. Even the things that were brought out of the Luo residence weren't many. In the past 10 years, Jingwan still wasn't used to casually leaving the house as if she was moving. When she went out, she did her best to make it as simple as possible. Li Hongyuan took out a night luminescent pearl and placed it to the side. Then, he covered it with a lampshade. Immediately, the room became much dimmer. Li Hongyuan only sat by the bedside. He didn't even reach out to touch her. Because he didn't use any medicine, he wasn't sure if a gentle touch would wake her up. She had also slept for a long time during the day. He had originally prepared himself not to appear, but unexpectedly, she fell asleep again. It seemed that she had really exhausted a lot of her energy. Li Hongyuan's heart ached slightly. However, if he had to do it again, he wouldn't hesitate to do it again. After that, until dawn, Li Hongyuan sat quietly by Jingwan's bedside. It seemed that just by looking at her, he was no longer bored or irritated. Your Highness, it's almost dawn. If he didn't leave now, he might be discovered at any time. Not long after Li Hongyuan left, Jingwan woke up. Jingwan's nose twitched. Mama, did someone come? Gong Mama's heart trembled slightly. No, Mississippi. Is there a problem? It's nothing. I just felt that the smell in the room wasn't right. Perhaps it was originally like this and I didn't notice it before. Gong Mama also felt a little guilty. She forgot that Mrs. Nose was also very sensitive. Wang Yi had stayed here for so long. Because of his injuries, it was inevitable that there would be a smell of medicine. He just left not long ago. The smell hadn't spread yet. She clearly smelled it. How could she miss it for a moment? After Jingwan got up, she did what she was supposed to do just like when she was in the Luo family. However, she did her morning exercises in the room and did not make too much noise. Instead, she practiced yoga. Yoga was not something she had to practice every day, nor was it part of her morning exercises. However, what she learned was the most authentic yoga. It was very difficult and had a great effect on the flexibility and balance of the body. After a whole set of exercises, Jingwan was covered in sweat. Although the surface of her body was uncomfortable after sweating, her whole body felt comfortable and she felt good. After finishing what she needed to do, she sent old Madame Luo away. Jingwan then went to see Yuan Xiaoqiao and Zhouing Shuang. Their mothers, One of them was her aunt. Naturally, they knew each other. The two families were close relatives. Even if her aunt blamed her, she didn't go too far. Xiao Qiao was also open-minded. She thought that it was good enough that she survived. For her, the shock of falling off the cliff seemed to have a bigger impact on her. This was the first time she saw old Madame Zhou. She was supposed to be a very straightforward woman, but now, her face was haggard and there were dark circles around her eyes. She looked much older than her actual age. When Jingwan greeted her, she only raised her head to look at Jingwan. She didn't say anything. She didn't even let her in to see Zhou Shuang. Madam, I don't know if Shuang, Miss Luo, we can't entertain you here. Please go back. Her voice was very cold and even mixed with suppressed resentment. She was the one who invited them out. She was fine now, but Zhou Shuang was blind. Even if it wasn't Jingwan's fault, comparing the two, she still felt bad. Jingwan naturally wouldn't argue with her. Madam, I just want to know if Shuang is awake. Old Madame Zhou saw that Jingwan was really worried about her daughter. She knew that she shouldn't be so against her, but she just couldn't control herself. Mother, is Jingwan here? Zhou Shuang's voice came from inside the room. At this time, Jingwan didn't care so much. She quickly went around old Madame Zhou and went into the room. Zhou Shuang was lying on the bed. Her body was slightly curled up. She was obviously very uneasy. She looked in the direction of the door, but she couldn't focus. Jingwan covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. Zhou Shuang was not Sunny Jia. Although her family was far from Sunny Jia's, she grew up in the palm of the hand. She didn't have the emotional experience of Sunny Jia. She was cheerful, but her psychological endurance was not strong. After she found out that she was blind, it was good that she didn't break down. Jingwan, is that you? Zhou Shuang reached out her hand and asked uncertainly. She didn't know about Jingwan's situation. She just woke up not long ago. She asked the people around her, but no one told her. She even thought that Jingwan was all ready. Jingwan quickly wiped away her tears and calmed down. She hurried forward and grabbed her hand. Shuang, it's me. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. That's good. Zhou Shuang smiled. I'm fine too. Don't worry. Jingwan could tell that she was pretending to be strong. Her heart ached even more. She couldn't help but lean over and hug her. Shuang, if you're really sad, just cry. Don't hold it in. It's not good for your health. Your blindness is only temporary. Trust me, when the blood disappears, you'll be able to see again. Really? Can I see again? Zhou Shuang's voice was a little choked. Yes, trust me. You definitely can. You can see again? You can see again. I believe you. I believe you. She hugged Jingwan tightly and started to cry. Jingwan, I'm scared. I can't see anything. I'm so scared. I'm really scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's okay. Your family, your friends, will all be by your side. Will always be by your side. Don't be scared. Jingwan patiently comforted her for a long time. Zhou Shuang finally calmed down. Then, she started to ask about Yuan Xiao and Sunny Jia. Jingwan didn't hide anything from her and told her everything. To a certain extent, disfigurement was much more serious than blindness. How did this happen? Zhou Shuang's family wasn't prominent, but her grandmother and old Madame Sun had an extraordinary friendship. Zhou Shuang often went to Ding General Manor. Although she wasn't very close to Sunny Jia, she was still more familiar with her than most people. On the way to White Dragon Temple, Zhou Shuang knew that Zhou Shuang was actually easier to get along with than she looked. Through Jingwan, she was much closer than before. Don't worry. Jingwan lowered her voice. She thinks it's better this way. Zhou Shuang was stunned. She didn't understand why Sunny Jia would think this way. Jingwan explained to her in a low voice, and then she showed a look of understanding. Jingwan dared to tell her directly because she knew that Zhou Shuang wasn't a talkative person. She knew what was important and wouldn't say anything even to her family. Zhou Shuang was silent for a moment. So she's also a pitiful person. Then, she seemed to think of something. What about you? Where are you hurt? Don't lie to me. The deepest wound on Jingwan's body was probably on her neck. She couldn't feel any pain anywhere else. If Jingwan said that she was fine, Zhou Shuang probably wouldn't believe her. She put Zhou Shuang's hand on her neck against her will. Feeling her careful touch, Jingwan couldn't help but feel guilty again. She couldn't help but curse someone in her heart. Is the wound deep? Everyone knew that the neck was fragile. If one wasn't careful, it could be fatal. It's not deep, really. Otherwise, my grandmother and the others wouldn't let me out. Zhou Shuang thought about it and agreed. Seeing the atmosphere between the two, Zhou Shuang's heart relaxed a little. However, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Her daughter said that she was fine and smiled all the time. Didn't she know that her smile was heartbreaking? However, an outsider who she hadn't known for a long time said a few words and coaxed her, and she immediately revealed her true feelings. What an ingrate! Zhou Shuang motioned for the servant girl to bring the medicine and prepare some food for her. Although she said that she was fine before, she complained that the medicine was bitter and said that she had no appetite. Zhou Shuang hoped that she would drink the medicine now and eat something. Otherwise, how could she get better? The servant girl brought the medicine over and looked at Jingwan with anticipation. Jingwan thought for a moment and knew what was going on. She took the medicine and let the servant girl help her up slowly. Shuang, come, drink the medicine. It's bitter. Zhou Shuang subconsciously refused. Jingwan stirred the medicine in the bowl gently with a spoon. Good medicine is bitter. How can you get better quickly if you don't drink the medicine? Don't you want to see it sooner? Good sister, quickly open your mouth. Do you want me, your younger sister, to laugh at you? Zhou Shuang's face reddened suspiciously. She reached out her hand. Give it to me. I'll drink it myself. Who needs you to feed me? You're a delicate girl who stretches out her arms and opens her mouth. Don't feed me. Jingwan laughed and put the bowl in her hand. Zhou Shuang drank it all in a few mouthfuls and then frowned. It seemed that she really hated bitter medicine. Jingwan picked up a candied fruit and stuffed it into her mouth. Zhou Shuang hurriedly held it. Miss, Duchess Ding asks you to go over. Nurse Gong entered the room and said softly, Jingwan, go quickly. Maybe something happened to Yijia. Zhou Shuang pushed her. Okay, I'll go take a look first. I'll come back to see you later. Okay. When she was about to leave, Jingwan suddenly stopped. There are some things that I don't want to say to my loved ones. There are some grievances that I don't want to release. It's because I care too much and don't want them to worry and be sad. Zhou Shuang was stunned and then understood what she meant. She was really a meticulous and considerate girl. I know. That girl. Zhou Shuang couldn't help tearing up. Jingwan nodded. Jingwan will take her leave first. Duchess Ding's mother, whom she relied heavily on, personally came to invite Jingwan. It was obvious that her attitude towards Jingwan had changed a lot. Along the way, Jingwan didn't ask Duchess Ding what she wanted to do. Greetings, madam. Get up quickly. Duchess Ding's attitude towards Jingwan was much more enthusiastic than yesterday. Although Jingwan felt that her attitude had changed a little too quickly and was a little strange, she didn't show it. Facing Duchess Ding's scrutinizing gaze, she stood quietly and calmly. She didn't think that there was anything shameful about her. Duchess Ding was quite impressed with her calm demeanor. She took Jingwan's hand and said, Jingwan, I heard that your grandmother has returned to the capital. I thought that you probably wouldn't go back for the time being. I'm going to let Yijia recuperate in White Dragon Temple. Jingwan, although you are 2 years younger than her, you look like an elder sister. Please take care of her a little more. Madam, you're too serious. Everyone can see how good Sister Yijia is. Let's not talk about who should take care of who. Since we call each other sisters, we should take care of each other. Duchess Ding nodded. You're a good girl. Why did these words sound a little strange? Obviously, they were ready. It didn't take long for Duchess Ding to leave with her people. Except for a mother by Duchess Ding's side, the others left as they came. Jingwan looked in the direction in which they left, deep in thought. Duchess Ding's attitude was really puzzling. Even if it was because of Sun Yijia, there didn't seem to be a need to go to this extent. Sun Yijia walked to her side, took her arm, and then smiled slyly at her. What are you talking about? Ask me what you want to know. Jingwan felt that it was better for her not to know. Sister Jia, you should be fine now. How about we go to the back of the mountain to pick some peach blossoms? Sunny Jia was a little surprised, but she didn't say much. Some things would naturally become clear when the time was right. If she said too much now, she was also worried that Sister Wan would be shy. Okay. Anyway, our purpose of coming to White Dragon Temple is to enjoy the flowers. Although there was an accident, if we don't go and take a look, wouldn't the loss be greater? Jingwan nodded. It's a pity that Xiao Qiao and Ing Shuang can't go with us. Then pick more and fill up their rooms. Although it may be worse than outside, there will be less regret. Therefore, Jingwan, who loved and cherished flowers, was also prepared to be a person who ruthlessly destroyed the flowers. The mountain was full of peach blossoms. Because of their accident, or because Jin Xinwang was assassinated, White Dragon Temple had temporarily closed its doors to the public. The other families in the capital knew that White Dragon Temple was currently in troubled times, so naturally, they wouldn't let their family members come over. The people who were there before also left in a hurry these 2 days. Therefore, in this peach forest, there was basically only Jingwan, Sunny Jia, and the people they brought. Wherever the flowers were the best and most beautiful, they would pick them one by one. They really didn't show any mercy when destroying them. Why did Miss Sun pick so many flowers? https://11/11/11807/66529161. Chapter 80. When Jingwan heard how Sunny Jia addressed the other party, she immediately realized who this person was. The first impression that Ruan Fangfei gave Jingwan was that she deserved to be a woman as famous as Sister Jia. She was like a clear water hibiscus, gentle and elegant. Ruan Fangfei was also holding a peach blossom in her hand. She walked over unhurriedly with a tranquil smile on her face. Under the tender and beautiful peach blossoms, she didn't lose her luster. Instead, it made her stand out from the crowd. The moment one noticed her, it was difficult to see any other beauty. It was really a case of comparing one's beauty to another's. If Sunny Jia wasn't wearing a white cloth on her face and dressed casually, she might be able to share the limelight with her. However, from now on, no one would compare the two of them. No matter how outstanding Sunny Jia was, the first thing people would think of when they thought of her was her disfigured face. One turned from a treasure to a pile of rubble, while the other was still a treasure. When they mentioned the two of them again, they would probably use the word used to. Normal people might sigh at Sunny Jia's experience, but they would mostly ridicule and gloat, because the two of them were the best among the noble ladies. It was said that the same sex repelled each other. In addition, the two of them had different standpoints behind them. They might not have the heart to compare, but they still couldn't help but care a little when they heard more about them. They rarely saw each other. Now that they met under such circumstances, should it be said that it was fate or heaven's will? Ruan Fangfei was very calm. There was nothing strange on her face at all. It seemed that she was still facing the intact Sunny Jia. This kind of person either had a really good mentality or was very good at pretending. Even Jingwan couldn't tell which kind she belonged to in a short time. When she was born, her brothers and sisters had already grown up. Naturally, they didn't compete with her. Her peers were all nephews and nephews. As an elder, she naturally had to give way to others. Above her, she was still pampered by her parents. Ruan Ruizhong saw it more clearly than Duke Dinghua. He didn't treat his daughter as a tool to exchange for benefits. She was the real Jiao Jiao who grew up safely and without worries. Then, could she be considered a person with a good mentality? However, Jingwan still felt that there was a trace of inconsistency. In this kind of environment where she was pampered, it was already good that she didn't become unruly and willful. In a situation where no one forced her, how could she still be so outstanding? After all, there were so many things to learn. To be considered outstanding, one naturally had to not only know how to do it, but also master it. It was impossible to do it without putting in some effort. How could a child have that kind of self-awareness? Would he have that kind of patience? How could he have that kind of willpower? Or could it be that she was really a genius who could learn many things at once and master them after learning them a little more? One had to know that Sunny Jia was such an outstanding noble lady. She had been raised under high-pressure policies. Or perhaps there was another possibility. She actually had the same fate as him. Then, was it a transmigration or a rebirth? Jingwan carefully sized up Ruan Fangfei, trying to find something from her to prove her guess. However, in such a short period of time, there naturally wouldn't be any results. Sunny Jia and Ruan Fangfei greeted each other. Then, Ruan Fangfei's gaze fell on Jingwan. I wonder which family this young lady is from. I have never seen such a beautiful younger sister before. You must have just come to the capital? Her smile was faint, but it made people feel very comfortable. This is the granddaughter of Luo Shangshu. She is the third child. Her name is Jingwan. She just came to the capital with old Madame Luo a few days ago. Sunny Jia introduced. Jingwan timely squatted down. Hello, Miss Ruan. Ruan Fangfei hurriedly returned the greeting. Who doesn't know that our Miss Sun's taste is the most picky? To be able to catch Miss Sun's eye in such a short period of time, I presume that the third Miss Luo is extremely outstanding in all aspects. Her eyes were clear and flawless as she teased with a smile. It was difficult to feel disgusted. Miss Ruan is too kind. I met Sister Jia probably because of fate. Compared to you and Sister Jia's unparalleled talents, I am just ignorant and vulgar. Enough, little Sister Wan. It's boring to be too modest. Sunny Jia pulled Jingwan's hand. It is said that everyone has their own strengths. Little Sister Wan's expertise is not in this area. Ruan Fangfei looked at Sunny Jia's actions, and her eyes flashed slightly. Why did she feel that Sunny Jia seemed to be deliberately putting on a show for her to see? It was as if she was announcing that this was her person and that she should not have any ideas. This childlike behavior could only mean that she cared. She couldn't help but look at Jingwan again. How should she put it? She felt that this was a very unique woman. She didn't have the kind of beautiful face that would attract people's attention at first sight. However, once you noticed it, it was difficult to ignore it. No matter how beautiful others were, it was difficult to make her disappear in the crowd. Also, the leisurely aura that came from her bones was very attractive. Ruan Fangfei covered her mouth and laughed. Miss Sun, are you worried that I will snatch you away? Yes, it's mainly because little Sister Wan is too attractive. I'm worried that if I don't keep an eye on her, she will forget about me. Sunny Jia said very frankly. What nonsense are you talking about? Jingwan gently pinched her. Sunny Jia immediately put on a wronged expression and pretended to be in pain as she rubbed the place where she was pinched. I'm talking nonsense? I have evidence. Jingwan didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her. Okay, don't be agitated. Be careful of the wound. It hurts. Sun Ijia stretched her hand to her lips like a child and wanted to blow on it, and the sound she made at the end of it was simply enough to give people goosebumps. Jingwan was extremely speechless. Was she addicted to playing with her? Seeing her stubbornly stretching out her hand, as if she wouldn't give up if she didn't satisfy her request, Jingwan unhappily blew on her hand twice. This scene made Ruan Fangfei quite surprised. She didn't have much contact with Sunny Jia, but she was very clear about her temperament. Was she actually like another person in private? It shouldn't be possible. If that was really the case, there wouldn't be no news at all. Then, was it just because of the Luo family's third young lady? It was very interesting. Looking at the Luo family's third young lady who was obviously younger, but had a doting attitude, this scene was really heartwarming. It was really dazzling to the eyes. She really wanted to destroy it. There are so many flowers. What are they for? Ruan Fangfei once again brought up the initial question. Originally, the four of us came to admire the flowers, but now that it's not convenient for them to come out, we are preparing to fold some back to make vases, Jingwan explained, her tone a little lighter. Ruan Fangfei's smile froze. Sorry, I don't know. If you want to talk about this, I am also responsible. If the cart driver can control it, perhaps, this matter naturally has nothing to do with Miss Ruan. Miss Ruan has also been frightened, so there's no need to take it to heart. Miss Luo is magnanimous. I'm just stating facts. Jingwan smiled faintly. It was just that Ruan Fangfei's injury wasn't serious, and now she really looked like nothing had happened. However, she had been unconscious for a long time and didn't wake up until the people from the capital came yesterday. But after waking up, she was in good spirits and shouldn't have been frightened. She had underestimated the endurance of these girls. Miss, let's go back. You've been out for a long time, and the old madam should be worried. The servant girl beside Ruan Fengfei said. Jingwan was still thinking why it wasn't Ruan Fengfei's mother who came, but then she reacted. This old madam was Ruan Fengfei's mother. She was young, but her seniority was high. Jingwan sometimes felt helpless and sad about the matter of old cows eating young grass in this world. These girls didn't marry at 17 or 18 and were considered old ladies. Without any status, they were arranged to be the second wives of those who could be their fathers or even their grandfathers. As for the men, they were already in their 50s or 60s, and no one would say anything about them eating those 13 or 14-year-old girls. Men were still like flowers at the age of 40, and women at the age of 40 could be classified as old people. This was how unfair it was. Ruan Fengfei came and left just like that. It seemed that because she was bored in her room, she came out to get some fresh air and some wind. Then, she plucked a peach blossom on the way. The two continued to pluck flowers. Little sister Wan, do you think Miss Ruan's appearance here is a coincidence or something else? Jing Wan tilted her head to look at her. Sunny Jia was plucking flowers. She plucked one and reached for the next one. She was quiet, but there seemed to be something else in this silence. No matter what it is, it probably has nothing to do with us. Sunny Jia finally turned to look at Jing Wan. Little sister Wan, what do you think of Miss Sun? It's just the first time I met her. It was only a short time and a few words. I didn't feel anything. Little sister Wan, do you know? When I was young, my mother always told me that Miss Ruan, who was 2 months younger than me, never needed my parents to worry about her. As for you, you only thought about playing all day long. If Miss Ruan learned something but I didn't and couldn't learn it well, my mother would ask the female teacher to hit my hand. It hurt so much. At that time, I hated Miss Ruan very much. Every time I saw her, I wanted to rush up and hit her, but I couldn't. Then, I tried my best to learn. I thought that if I surpassed her, my mother wouldn't say that she was good and wouldn't hit me. Later, I got used to it. I didn't need anyone to urge me. I learned by myself. I didn't have to learn everything that she knew. I just learned some things that I liked. Until now, she's still so perfect that it's unreal. Jingwan guessed that Sunny Jia grew up under pressure. However, she didn't expect that there would be a child from another family in her life, and this person's influence on her was so great. However, Jingwan noticed Sun Ijia's last sentence, so perfect that it's unreal. This kind of person often hid a side that others didn't know. This kind of person always had 7 emotions and 6 desires. When they were affected by negative emotions, they always needed a way to vent. She had never shown her emotions in the places that others could see. Then, what about the places that others couldn't see? If it was just a normal way to vent, such as crying, it would be fine. However, there was another kind of person who was called a pervert. Of course, Jingwan wouldn't speculate about others with malice. Maybe Ruan Fengfei was just a little picky and pursued perfection. Maybe she really had a life like her, so her emotions wouldn't be easily affected. As for whether she was a pervert or not, Jingwan didn't think of deliberately finding out. It had nothing to do with her, right? However, if it wasn't a coincidence, and Ruan Fengfei really wasn't as perfect as she looked, her purpose of coming here might be to see with her own eyes whether Sunny Jia, who was as famous as her, was really disfigured. She used to have 2 first places. Now, she was unique. It should be something to be happy about, right? Sister Jia, do you care a lot? How could I care? Therefore, Ruan Fengfei's appearance was thrown to the back of their minds. Each of them held 2 peach blossoms in their hands. The big baskets in the hands of the maidservants were also full. However, they didn't go back directly. They went to many other places to look. Although White Dragon Temple was famous for its peach blossoms, it didn't mean that there were no other flowers. They more or less picked some. Jingwan even asked the maidservants to pick a lot of wild flowers and bring them back. Because Yuan Xiaoqiao and Zhouing Shuang lived in the same courtyard, they simply moved the 2 of them to the courtyard. It was inconvenient for them to move, so they just looked and smelled at the side. Regarding Jingwan's flower arrangement, the people around her had long been accustomed to it. Although they still felt that it was amazing every time they saw it. It was the first time for the others to see it. Although the peach blossoms were beautiful, there were a lot of them placed together, and there were other miscellaneous things. However, under Jingwan's hands, they were trimmed and trimmed. No matter if it was a basket or a vase, she could quickly arrange them into various shapes. Coupled with some other embellishments, it was clearly the same thing, but it felt different when looking at it. It was simply too beautiful. Sunny Jia and Yuan Xiaoqiao stared at Jingwan and couldn't help but praise. So amazing. Jingwan smiled and didn't say anything. Seeing Zhou Shuang's anxious and lonely expression, she moved the finished flower arrangement to a place where she could touch it. Shuang, smell it? Not far away. The two madams also couldn't help but nod. Madame Zhou said to Jingwan's aunt, Luo Ronghui, your family's daughter's skills are also superb. She has always lived with my mother in Qi and Prefecture. Today is also the first time I've seen her. After a moment of silence, Luo Ronghui continued, my mother doted on her the most. My mother is a person who clearly distinguishes between love and hate. If she likes someone, she likes them. If she doesn't like them, she doesn't like them. She doesn't care about sand in her eyes. It is very difficult for ordinary people to enter her eyes, but she has always placed Third Lass at the top of her heart and doted on her. Third Lass, in fact, is really a good child. Madame Zhou actually understood Luo Ronghui's meaning. Seeing that Jingwan was always concerned about her daughter, she said, I know this matter can't be blamed on her, but it is hard for me to accept it at the moment. More importantly, our family's Shuang is currently discussing marriage with the son of the Imperial College's chancellor. They were even about to exchange marriage invitations, but she suddenly lost her sight. This matter is very likely to fail. Tell me, how can I not feel sad? As she spoke, she couldn't help but cry. Don't cry. They are happy right now. If they hear this, it will be very disappointing. Speaking of which, Lord Chancellor is a kind person. It is not impossible for your family's Shuang to regain her sight. Perhaps there won't be any problems with the marriage. Luo Ronghui consoled. Madame Zhou wiped away her tears. I hope so. Little sister Wan, please teach us. Sun Yijia looked at her expectantly. Okay. Actually, it is not difficult. Jingwan conveniently sat beside Zhou Shuang and asked the servant girls to bring scissors and other things. Then, as she spoke, she taught Zhou Shuang how to cut her hand. From time to time, she whispered a few words to her. Zhou Shuang smiled very happily. She touched her hand when she couldn't see. Even if she was accidentally pricked, she didn't care. When Sunny Jia and Yuan Xiaoqiao saw this, they looked at each other and smiled at the same time. Although they were in a bad situation when they first arrived at White Dragon Temple, it was also a good thing that they could still gather together happily. Actually, things like flower arrangement were more or less common for unmarried women. The basic things were not difficult. The key was that Jingwan taught them some small skills, which were very useful. She is the youngest, but the most considerate one who knows how to take care of others. If I were your mother, I would definitely like such a considerate girl. Madame Zhou replied. Luo Ronghui smiled. Our family's Qiao Qiao has been sick and listless before. Otherwise, she would complain that her leg hurts. But now, she is so happy that she has forgotten all about it. Yes, this situation is already much better than expected. Their mood is better now, so I think they will recover faster. Young miss, the things you asked for are here. Nurse Gong led a group of people to carry a large and heavy wooden box. What is this? Yuan Xiaoqiao asked curiously. Jingwan did not keep them in suspense. She opened the wooden box and found that it was filled with square blocks of mud. You asked the monks to help you with this? What are you going to do with this? Sun Yijia was puzzled. Of course it is to arrange flowers. Without further explanation, she directly started to do it. She brought over a table and piled up the mud blocks one by one. Some places were higher, while others were lower. Of course, Jingwan did not need to do it herself. The servant girls would do it according to her instructions. After the first step was completed, Jingwan started to decorate it. She did not touch the originally square blocks of mud. Instead, she decorated them with leaves, branches, and some wildflowers of different sizes and colors. When she stopped, the mud blocks no longer had their original angular appearance. They were completely a large and beautiful flower arrangement base. Soon after, Jingwan started to arrange flowers on top of this base. Because it was all soft mud, it was naturally easy to arrange. The flower arrangement that took up more than half of the table quickly took shape under Jingwan's hands. The flower arrangement they had seen before was basically the bouquet in the vase. This was the first time they knew that flower arrangement could be done this way. Sunny-jia could not help but walk forward. She wanted to reach out and touch it, but she seemed to be afraid that she would damage it. She could only praise, "It is really beautiful." Luo Ronghui and Zhou Foran could not help but gather around to take a look. Miss Luo's hands are really skillful. I don't deserve Foran's praise. It's just that I thought a little more than others. In fact, anyone can do it. But it's just that you thought a little more than others. Jingwan slightly blushed. This was not what she thought. She just saw a little more, but she could not explain it. Mother, don't block it. Let me take a good look. Yuan Xiao could not help but say. Okay, I'll let you. Luo Ronghui moved to the side. Zhou Shuang was the only one who couldn't see the hustle and bustle. She was anxious, but she just lay there quietly, imagining the special flower arrangement. During the whole process, the maidservant whispered into her ear in detail. She tried her best to imagine it, but she felt very empty. She did not feel that it was very beautiful. It was somewhat powerless. Her hand was suddenly grasped. Jingwan's soft words rang in her ear. When your eyes are better, I will arrange flowers for you. There are all kinds of flowers. You said it. When the time comes, if you do not meet my requirements, I will not comply. Zhou Shuang gently shook Jingwan's hand. Jingwan was true to her words. There were many more flower arrangements, filling Yuan Xiao and Zhou Shuang's room. Their side was harmonious, but Li Hongyuan's side was not so wonderful. Ruan Fangfei deliberately went after knowing that Wan and the others went to the peach forest. She did not react when she saw Sunny-jia. Instead, her attention was more on Wan. Replying to Master, yes. Li Hongyuan's understanding of Ruan Fangfei was that she was unusually cold, but she never thought that there was anything wrong with her. As for whether she was jealous of other outstanding women, he really did not know, nor was he interested in knowing. However, she inexplicably stared at Wan, so he could not ignore it. Li Hongyuan quietly pondered for a moment. After a while, he said, "Prepare the people. When Wan returns to the capital, immediately send them to her." In addition, Ruan Fangfei's side cannot be relaxed. The capital is always paying attention to how Imperial Father will deal with this matter. This prince wants to know as soon as possible. Yes. In fact, whether it was Eunuch Mu or an in this case, why didn't he directly deal with Ruan Fangfei? Or, did he really have feelings for Miss Ruan in his heart? Li Hongyuan glanced at them, and the two immediately abandoned the thoughts in their hearts, as if they were afraid that their master could see through it. In the next few days, Jingwan's group of 4 lived very peacefully and happily. Jingwan not only made flower arrangements for them, but also taught them how to make rouge with peach blossoms as the main ingredient. There were 1 or 2 times when she even carried Yuan Xiao and Zhou Shuang out on a soft couch and ran all over the mountain. They were happy, but those rough old maids were a bit suffering. However, for the sake of these older sisters, Jingwan could only apologize to them. As for the 3 Furins, seeing that their young ladies were happy and their bodies were recovering quickly, even if their words and deeds were a bit out of line, they would turn a blind eye. They often gathered together and talked happily. Perhaps Sunny-jia was used to it, so she didn't say anything about her mother's absence. Li Hongyuan didn't attack every day or night, but at least once every other night. Fortunately, except for one night when he gave Jingwan some calming medicine and hugged her to sleep, the rest of the time he just looked at her and left after sitting for an hour. This kind of life lasted for 7 or 8 days, and Li Hongyuan waited for news from the capital. Bestowed marriage? Imperial Father bestowed Sunny-jia to this prince? Li Hongyuan gently knocked on the table. You know that this prince likes beautiful women, but bestowed a disfigured one to this prince. Because this prince's whereabouts are unknown, you don't know about this matter and won't disobey the imperial decree, right? They all lowered their heads and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Speaking of which, how many times had their master been bestowed a marriage? Go and arrange for Wan Fangfei to be bestowed to this prince as a side consort. The time can be delayed. It can be delayed for 10 days or half a month. https://11/11/6652962. Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. M. Chapter 81. There had been no news of Li Hongyuan these days, and the case of the flower market didn't find anything important as he wished. However, it was more or less proved that his good sons were involved in it. It was just that none of them gained anything in the end. Lu Chengdi had been in a state of rage. In order to warn them, several groups of people were found to be important scapegoats. Nobody knew how many people's black veils had been stolen and how many people's blood had been stained. The princes all hid themselves obediently and didn't dare to act rashly. Even the people sent to White Dragon Temple were all withdrawn after receiving some specious news. Lu Chengdi sent people to the nearby villages and towns where White Dragon Temple was located. They constantly expanded the search area, including the river where Li Hongyuan fell into. He had been salvaged back and forth countless times. It was true that no one found him alive or dead. After so many days, they still couldn't find him. Most likely, he had been eaten by fish. Shut up. Lu Chengdi was furious. He just didn't believe that his scourge of a son was dead. Perhaps it was really because Ding General Manor had enjoyed supreme glory for nearly 100 years. Among the 4 dukes and 9 marquises who founded the country, Ding General Manor was the only one that stood firm. Therefore, in Duke Ding's subconscious mind, he could do whatever he wanted as long as it was not a crime of treason. Therefore, when Lu Chengdi was angry, he repeatedly ran to Lu Chengdi and cried that his poor daughter, who was in the prime of her life, was disfigured and her life was over. Lu Chengdi actually knew Duke Ding's purpose. He just wanted to give him a son-in-law that he liked. At this time, the Empress should have dissuaded her brother. However, for the sake of her son, she not only didn't dissuade him but also pretended to persuade Lu Chengdi. She said that her brother loved his daughter very much and only had one precious daughter. If his daughter's face was disfigured, it would only delay her marriage, and Lu Chengdi only needed to say a word to solve it. He said it so casually, as if Lu Chengdi's one word was enough to decide everything. Emperor Lu Chengdi laughed, which made Empress Sun inexplicably frightened. After that, she felt uneasy. Sure enough, something bad happened the next day. An imperial edict of marriage, written by Emperor Lu Chengdi himself, was read out in front of all the civil and military officials in the morning court. Once the imperial edict was issued, there was no room for regret. Seeing that more than half of the people in the imperial court were stunned, Lu Chengdi felt a sense of satisfaction. Don't think that Lu Chengdi didn't know that his eldest son's marriage with Sun Yijia was ruined by that vile spawn. Don't think that he didn't know that the Empress and the others wanted to use the marriage to rope in people. In order to find another good wife, Duke Dinghua's mansion was picking left and right and running around in many ways. Those who didn't know would think that he loved his daughter very much. And those who knew, many people secretly mocked him. This was not marrying his daughter, but selling her. To put it bluntly, it was no different from goods waiting for a high price. Whoever gave the highest price would be able to marry the unparalleled beauty. The power of Duke Ding's mansion was there, and the eldest son of the emperor had the highest possibility of ascending the throne. After all, he was the eldest son of the emperor. His ability was not the best among the princes, but it was not bad either. In terms of etiquette and law, it was justifiable for him to ascend the throne. Naturally, there were so many people who were eager to make a move, so that the rumors between Sun Yijia and the eldest son of the emperor, Prince Kong, could be ignored. Unfortunately, before the dust settled, something happened to Sun Yijia. It had to be said that Sun Yijia's existence in this transaction was equivalent to a token. As long as she existed well, that was her greatest value. Then, whether her face was intact or not wasn't that important. However, if they really voluntarily married such a woman, the transaction would be put on the table. Some things were very good to know, but they couldn't be exposed to the surface. Face was very important to a family. If they only cared about benefits and didn't ask about anything else, it would only be criticized. Duke Ding's behavior was just to let Lu Chengdi issue an edict to save their face. After all, it was difficult to take the emperor's order. They had obviously gained benefits, but they still pretended that they had no choice. Sunny Jia, including Jingwan, and even Sun Yilin, who had just been involved in the officialdom, only thought that Sunny Jia, who was disfigured, would be abandoned. Who would have thought that Duke Ding would go to such an extent? He didn't give her a way out at all. How bitterly disappointed and sad it was. And this time, it could be regarded as a lesson to them. Never underestimate some people's cold-bloodedness and shamelessness. Unfortunately, they miscalculated one thing. Lu Chengdi was indeed a relatively moderate emperor. He didn't make decisions on the court, nor did he have the ambition to expand the territory of Qi Yuan. However, it didn't mean that he didn't have a temper and would be led by the nose by a group of people. If they really annoyed him, no one would have a good time. Duke Ding, aren't you worried that your daughter won't be able to get married? Fine. Now I'll give my son to you as your son-in-law. I've given you a lot of face. What? Are you dissatisfied with my son, Duke Ding? No, your majesty. Jin Xinwang is handsome, elegant, and elegant. Your daughter, even before her disfigurement, was barely worthy of him. What she looks like now, although I haven't seen it, I can't imagine it. Seeing that Duke Ding has always been loyal and devoted, I can't bear to see my beloved officials worry all day long, so I reluctantly set your daughter as Jin Xinwang's consort. Lu Chengdi put on an attitude that he had suffered a great loss for Duke Ding. He almost directly said, "Son, I've let you down. I've chosen such a Wang Fei for you, but I have no choice. Duke Ding is wholeheartedly devoted to the country. I can't chill the officials' hearts, so I can only wrong you to solve my worries for me. Duke Ding, my son is highly talented, knowledgeable, and skilled in both civil and military affairs. Now, he wants to marry your daughter. He's sacrificed so much. Don't you feel embarrassed if you don't prepare more dowry for your daughter?" When the courtiers listened to Lu Chengdi's tearful narration, they couldn't help but lower their heads again and again, covering the twitching corners of their mouths. "Your Majesty, can you still have a little face? Even if you praise your son as if he's unparalleled in the heavens, you can't change the fact that he has no good points except for his face. There's also that rotten reputation. Even if you don't like Duke Ding, you have to say that even the disfigured Miss Sun is wrong to marry your son. Also, counting with your fingers, from the time Jin Xinwang left the palace until now, how many times have you bestowed a marriage? The 7th time. Ah, the 7th time. There's no one else who can jinx his wife to this extent. Just because you're the emperor, you can't disregard someone else's daughter's life, right? Also, there's still no news from Jin Xinwang. Most likely, was he preparing to hold a ghost marriage for Sunny Jia to be the widow? Or what? Even if some people knew the actual situation of Li Hongyuan, they believed that he wouldn't easily get into trouble, so they couldn't argue for Lu Chengdi. Although you praised your son by a fluke, there wasn't a single mistake. His temperament was unpredictable, and his temperament was still acceptable. Even adding on the reputation of jinxing his wife, they were still willing to send their daughters to Jin Xinwang Fu to serve him. It was only jinxing his wife. Not being a legitimate wife was enough. But, alas, sending their own daughters to him would only be a waste, and they wouldn't be able to reap any benefits. It's better not to think about using this method to climb up the ranks. Duke Ding knelt in the main hall. Not to mention that his abacus had fallen through. Lu Chengdi also named him to give a generous dowry to compensate his son. "Beloved minister's son." Duke Ding quivered. "This official thanks your majesty for your grace. For my daughter to be able to marry Jin Xinwang as a consort, it's the good fortune of 3 lifetimes. It's good that beloved minister knows." Lu Chengdi was satisfied. If the people around Li Hongyuan saw the current Lu Chengdi, they would probably be able to find the reason for their master's shamelessness. They were simply father and son in the same vein. Lu Chengdi's sudden imperial edict hadn't been dismissed yet, so the entire harem knew about it. After a moment of shock, some people were completely dumbfounded, while others clapped and laughed. The emperor's move was simply a stroke of genius. Not only did it disrupt the plans of the empress and the eldest prince, but it also made Duke Ding's Fu suffer a double loss. Jin Xinwang was imperial consort Su's adopted son. The mother and son relationship was deep, so it was absolutely impossible for him to stand on the Empress's side. Moreover, Sunny Jia was disfigured. Even if she could successfully marry into Jin Qinhuang Fu, being a living widow was considered light. Jin Qinhuang, who only loved beauties, might hate her, which was equivalent to forming a death grudge. If Duke Ding's Fu defected to Imperial Consort Su's side, the situation could be eased and Sunny Jia could live a better life. However, Duke Ding's Fu was the Empress and the eldest prince's hardcore supporters. The final result was that Sunny Jia was completely reduced to a useless chess piece and no longer had any use. There was also that Sun Yilin, who couldn't stand in the court, but was also the inner court's official in the palace. When he heard about it, he almost broke the brush in his hand. He originally wanted to fight for a chance for his younger sister. Unfortunately, because of that good father of his, he thoroughly angered the emperor. Now, it was too late. Everything was too late. Although he had the emperor's favor and trust, it was far from being able to make the emperor take back his order. So hateful, really hateful. Sun Yilin had never regretted it like this. If he didn't back down from the beginning, if he climbed up from the beginning, how could he not have any right to speak now? The veins on his clenched fists were bulging. His teeth were clenched, and his eyes were gloomy as if they were about to drip out. His whole body exuded a malicious aura, which made the little eunuchs serving in the inner court tremble. They only felt that how could the usually genial and elegant Gongzi be so terrifying? Sun Yilin gradually restrained his emotions after a long while. He slightly lowered his head, looked at his palm and whispered, "Good younger sister, just wait. Even if you marry into Jin Qinhuang Fu, I will make sure that Jin Qinhuang doesn't dare to neglect you even a little bit." When Duchess Ding Guoforan learned of this news, her eyes darkened and she almost fainted, scaring the people who served her. It wasn't easy for her to calm down, but she couldn't stop her tears from falling down. Her poor daughter, her poor daughter. These days, she tried to dissuade Duke Dinghua. Her daughter was already so pitiful, she shouldn't really force her into a dead end. However, it was useless. She could only hope that even if the future son-in-law didn't like her daughter, it was fine to let her live her own life in the inner court, as long as he didn't treat her harshly. Now it was all over, all over. Jin Qinhuang, that living king of hell, her daughter might die in his hands one day. Duke, you are so cruel and don't care about the affection between father and daughter. Then, from now on, don't blame me for being ruthless. Later, this matter spread all over the capital. Originally, there weren't many people who knew about Sunny Jia's disfigurement. Because of her father's unbridled publicity, not to mention the common people, at least those officials knew about it. Now that they knew that Sun Yijia had such a result, there were fewer people who rejoiced in her misfortune. It was a pity, really a pity. What's a pity? She can still be a Wang Fei after being disfigured. I say, her life is especially good. There was no lack of people who said this. But Jin Qinhuang's reputation, and even now, we don't know if he's dead or alive. His Majesty is aware of this situation and still issued an imperial edict to grant marriage. Then Sunny Jia must be married. It depends on whether she marries a dead person or a living person. But no matter what, she is still a Wang Fei. It sounds so majestic. I say, if Jin Qinhuang is really gone, it would be better for Miss Sunday. If he is still alive, I don't know if Miss Sun can safely survive until the day of her marriage. I heard that none of Jin Qinhuang's previous fiancés had a good end. If they didn't die, they were injured, and even their chastity was destroyed. Duchess Ding Guoforan originally didn't intend to send a letter to Sun Yijia, but she would know sooner or later. If she came back and was caught unprepared to face this bad news, it would be better to tell her in advance and let her be mentally prepared. She hardened her heart and personally wrote a letter, letting the servants whip the horse to send it to Bai Long Temple. Compared to Li Hongyuan, who used pigeons to send letters, they received the news before the morning court was over. Sunny Jia's side was naturally much slower. She was originally happy, but after Sun Yijia opened the letter and read it, her body went limp and she almost fell to the ground. Jia. Jingwan quickly stepped forward to support her. She saw that her eyes were absent-minded, as if she had lost her soul in an instant. What's wrong? What happened? She carefully asked. thinking that Duke Dingwa Foreign had caused trouble again, but she didn't get a response from Sunny Jia. Jingwan frowned and reached out to pick up the letter that fell to the ground. Although it was rude to privately read other people's letters, she couldn't care so much now. After a closer look, Jingwan's face also became very unsightly. This letter clearly stated the cause and effect of the marriage. Jingwan, what's wrong? Yuan Xiaoqiao saw them like this and couldn't help but ask anxiously. These days, she got along with Sunny Jia, so their relationship naturally improved by leaps and bounds. They were already close friends. She knew that something big must have happened, so she was very worried. Zhouing Shuang also had a face full of doubts. Jingwan looked at Sunny Jia, the pit of her stomach feeling uncomfortable. She opened her mouth with difficulty. Duke Dingwa used Jia Jiejia's face injury as an excuse to pretend to be pitiful in an attempt to have His Majesty decree a marriage. He angered His Majesty, so His Majesty bestowed Jia Jiejia to Jin Qinhuang. What? Yuan Xiaoqiao and Zhouing Shuang were so shocked that they almost sat up. How could this be? Why did it have to be Jin Qinhuang? Even if he is a scholar, he is still a powerful country's Jin Qinhuang. Isn't this pushing Yijia into the fire pit? Jingwan didn't have a comprehensive understanding of the rumors about Jin Qinhuang, but just knowing that was enough to determine that this person was definitely not a good match. She also understood that many things were actually exaggerated, but the 22-year-old Jin Qinhuang didn't have a proper female master in the Fu. This was very clear that there was a problem. Moreover, based on the things he did to her that night, she could basically conclude that there was still a white moonlight in his heart and a cinnabar at the tip of his heart. She was clear about a man's bad nature. The more he couldn't get it, the more he wanted it. And what if that woman appeared again? Once that heart was partial to a woman, it would become unreasonable. Marrying such a person, it would be very difficult to live her own life without caring about anything in the inner courtyard. In order to make room for the person in his heart, perhaps she could do all kinds of crazy things. If Li Hongyuan knew of Jingwan's thoughts, wouldn't he vomit 3 liters of blood? However, Jingwan's last thought was really not wrong. A certain king of hell did a lot of crazy things in order to leave the position of D-wife unsullied for her. Jingwan held Sun Yijia's shoulder, not knowing how to comfort her. Perhaps the saddest thing in her heart wasn't that she was bestowed a marriage to Jin Qinhuang, but her father's actions. Jia Jiejia, Jin Qinhuang may not be so unbearable. Jingwan said against her heart, not so unbearable? Yuan Xiaoqiao suddenly became agitated. My good younger cousin, that is because you are not in the capital and do not know that person Jin Qinhuang. Let me tell you, that person Jin Qinhuang is cruel and callous. He eats human flesh, drinks human blood, is greedy for flowers, and is lecherous. He does not discriminate between men and women, whether it is hot or cold. As long as it is a beauty, he has his eyes on it. No matter if it is fragrant or stinky, he will get it in his hands. In the capital, there is also another courtyard where he specially keeps beauties. I heard that there are even mother and daughter inside. Just because he has taken a fancy to a married woman, it is not the first or second time that he has caused the family to be ruined and the family to perish. He is also fickle and cold-blooded. Xiao, shut up. Because Yuan Xiao raised her voice, it attracted the attention of several Furins on the other side. Hearing Yuan Xiao's words, Luo Ronghue almost fainted from anger and hurriedly rushed over. Are these words for a girl like you to say? Is Jin Qinhuang something you can talk about? You don't want your life anymore? He poked her forehead hatefully. When did I talk about it? This is clearly something that everyone knows. Why can't I say it? Jin Qinhuang dares to do it. Is he afraid of being talked about? You're still talking. Luo Ronghue wished he could cover her mouth. I cough. Probably because she was too agitated. Yuan Xiao violently coughed. My little ancestor, quickly stop for a moment. Luo Ronghue hurriedly patted her back and took the water handed over by the maidservant to feed her. Jingwan was also shocked by Yuan Xiao's explosive news. It wasn't until she heard Yuan Xiao's coughing that she came back to her senses and hurriedly went forward to appease her. Okay, I know. You calm down a bit. What they didn't know was that Yuan Xiao's words were coincidentally heard by a certain person who was bored and came to the corner to eavesdrop. Only separated by a few bushes of flowers and trees, Li Hongyuan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He almost lost his reason and directly went out to strangle Yuan Xiao to death. Eunuch Mu's shadow guards who were hidden in the dark shrunk their necks and acted like ostriches. They were really afraid that he would take his anger out on them and drag them out to chop them up and feed them to the dogs. This cousin of the future Wang Fei was too daring. Even if it was a fact that everyone knew, she shouldn't say it so bluntly. Moreover, she said it to the future Wang Fei. It didn't matter if her own little life was targeted, but it would implicate others. Li Hongyuan broke a branch with a snap, which naturally alarmed Jingwan and the others. "Who is it?" Nanny Gong scolded and turned to look at the flower bushes. As expected, she met Li Hongyuan's gloomy eyes. She squatted down to greet him. In fact, she had noticed them when they came. After all, Eunuch Mu was not a person who practiced martial arts. Others might be able to hide, but Nanny Gong heard his footsteps clearly. Therefore, Nanny Gong went over as soon as she heard the sound, in case they were discovered by others because they didn't leave immediately. At that time, it would be strange if Li Hongyuan didn't do anything when they were caught talking bad about others. However, he couldn't kill them to silence them. Otherwise, his secret would be exposed. Seeing Li Hongyuan's expression, Nanny Gong felt inexplicably happy and gloated. Now that you know these things, if you keep it in your heart, you will suffer when you get married in the future. What's more, it's all fake, but it's hard to explain. That kind of grievance, haha. Nanny Gong's expression was clearly seen by Li Hongyuan after they looked at each other for a breath. He turned around and walked away. In just 2 or 3 steps, he disappeared behind another bush of flowers and trees. Therefore, even if Nanny Gong didn't come to check, it was easy for him to not be seen by others. Nanny Gong turned back and the others looked at her. After all, what Yuan Xiao said just now was disgraceful. If it was really spread out, it would be no joke. No one. It was just an animal that came in from outside. It stepped on the branch and flashed past. I didn't see what it was. Everyone was relieved. Yuan Xiao patted her chest with lingering fear. Luo Ronghue poked her forehead again. After that, the Furins also knew the reason for Yuan Xiao's gaffe. They couldn't help but look at Sunny Jia with pity and sympathy. Before coming to Bai Long Temple, I heard that Jin Xin Wang was attacked by an assassin. Mother. Jingwan raised her voice. Yuan Xiao was frank and outspoken, but now she was naive. None of them were easy to worry about. Moreover, Jin Xin Wang was still alive and well. Zhang Shi shut her mouth in embarrassment. She knew that she said the wrong thing. At this time, Sunny Jia also calmed down a bit. She smiled softly. Don't worry. No matter how bad it is, it's just like this. If you really care about me, then accompany me more before I get married. That smile was so hurtful, so dazzling. Not long after, Wan Fengfei also received the news. Naturally, it wasn't her father who passed it to her. It was her people who specifically instructed them to pay attention to Jin Xin Wang. Although until now, they still hadn't found out who was the one who attacked Jin Xin Wang. Or perhaps Lu Chengdi already knew. It was just that the murderer was too special. Lu Chengdi still caught a scapegoat and didn't even pin the crime of stabbing a Qin Wang. And the scapegoat was the same as before. He didn't belong to any side. Most likely, it was to confuse the public. Lu Chengdi's sons were secretly shocked by their father's means. In fact, Lu Chengdi was also very miserable. His men failed to find out the real culprit behind the scenes, and the clues that seemed to be clues vaguely pointed out that his good sons were vaguely involved in the flower market. What could he do? Kill his sons? That was absolutely impossible, not to mention that there was no definite evidence. To let it go so easily? That also couldn't be done. His sons would have suffered in vain, and it would also increase the courage of the person behind the scenes. Thus, there was a method that wasn't a method. Jade Essence Palace, Imperial concubine Su and Li Hongyuan were drinking tea. At first, it was quiet, and there was almost no sound. Mu Fei, what is Fu Huang doing? I can't see through his tricks at all. And Li? Sixth brother. Is he really? Ming-er, nothing will happen to you on Earth. Absolutely nothing will happen. Do you understand? Imperial concubine Su stared at Li Hongming, her eyes slightly red. It was obvious that she hadn't rested well recently. It was obvious that she was enduring fear and worry, as if Li Hongming dared to say a bad word, the cup in her hand would be smashed at his head. What was wrong with Lu Chengdi? It was just that Yuan hadn't been found for a long time, so he probably had some hysteria. Li Hongyuan was too special for Lu Chengdi. The corners of Li Hongming's mouth twitched a little with a bit of unspeakable mockery, but he didn't know who the target of his mockery was. Every time it was related to Li Hongyuan, Mu Fei always stood on Li Hongyuan's side. Sometimes, he wondered if he was actually her adopted son. It had been more than 20 years, Mu Fei. You really worked hard. Mu Fei, you're right. How could something happen to Sixth Brother? Maybe he was saved by someone, and because of an accident, he hasn't been found yet. Imperial concubine Su's expression eased a little, as if she was comforted by Li Hongming. She held the cup and took a sip, but her hand trembled slightly and she almost dropped the cup. After the faint smoke, her expression became more and more haggard. That Miss Sun is good in all aspects, but after all, her face is disfigured. I'm worried that your sixth brother won't even be willing to enter the bridal chamber. After all, this time, your imperial father personally granted the marriage. What if he angers your imperial father again? Li Hongming restrained his emotions and chuckled. Mu Fei, you'd better worry. If sixth brother comes back and finds out that he was granted a disfigured princess, will he directly disobey the edict and make a big fuss? Otherwise, even if he doesn't disobey the edict, what if he sleeps in a brothel on the day of the wedding? It will be a big joke. Imperial concubine Su also rubbed her eyebrows with a headache. That was really something he would do. In the end, she could only smash the broken pot. Anyway, he has offended those he shouldn't have offended, and those he shouldn't have offended. This one doesn't make a difference. I'll discuss with your imperial father and see if we can choose 2 more beauties to compensate him. Li Hongming thought of the dancer he asked for from Li Hongyuan a few days ago. The taste was really good. Will sixth brother lack beauties? How can that be the same? Those women's statuses are too low. Yuan is right to send them to other courtyards. Their statuses are high, and they are beautiful enough. After going to Sun Yijia, there seems to be only one left in the big capital. Imperial concubine Su was startled when she heard this. Then, she said, Ming-er, don't talk nonsense. Mu Fei, I'm not talking nonsense. You probably don't know, but Ruan Fangfei's marriage has been delayed, just like Sun Yijia. It's not because Grand Elder Ruan is picky, but because Ruan Fangfei admires sixth brother. Li Hongming's lips curled up. He was in a good mood when talking about this. Is this true? Imperial concubine Su asked in disbelief. Of course it's true. In fact, regarding this matter, if one paid attention, they would more or less know about it. Why didn't I pay attention before? Li Hongming was obviously annoyed that he only found out about such an important matter 2 days ago. Do you know why Miss Ruan is coincidentally at White Dragon Temple? It's said that after hearing that sixth brother was punished, she followed. If it wasn't for the people sent to White Dragon Temple accidentally finding out, we would still be in the dark. Fortunately, it's not too late to find out now. I just don't know if my brothers also found out about this matter. Ming-er, you want to? It's probably because Grand Elder Ruan is suppressing it, so it didn't come out. Otherwise, Ruan Fangfei and sixth brother might even have a child. Since I'm interested, why not add fuel to the fire? If Grand Elder Ruan becomes sixth brother's father-in-law, could it be that he will cut ties with us? Grand Elder Ruan isn't an easy person to deal with. Moreover, if his beloved daughter becomes a concubine, it's possible that he won't be able to rope her in and might even become enemies. If everything comes from Miss Ruan's own hands, and she's willing, Sun Yijia obviously won't be liked by sixth brother and will only exist in name. If Ruan Fangfei enters Jin Xinwang Fu, she will definitely be at Sifei. Other than that, she will be the true mistress. As long as sixth brother doesn't have a second Sifei, no one can be on equal footing with her, let alone be above her. The possibility that Ruan Fangfei won't agree is too low. If you want to talk about looks, it's just taking advantage. Sixth brother can also be favored by a fairy-like girl like Yuan Fangfei. Like Yuan her? What's wrong with Yuan her? What's wrong with him? Imperial concubine Su immediately said in dissatisfaction. Yes, yes, sixth brother is your heart. In your eyes, there's nothing bad about him. Li Hongming said rather helplessly, do as you see fit. Be careful. If you mess it up, it's not a joke. Don't worry, Mu Fei. I know how powerful it is. Imperial concubine Su paused also. Tell your sixth brother in advance. Mu Fei is really thinking about sixth brother's feelings all the time, sending him a beauty and asking if he's willing. Imperial concubine Su cast a sidelong glance at him. Okay, Akin knows. As for whether he would do it or not, that was another matter. That sixth brother of his was a natural rebel. If he told him, he might ruin the plan. Besides, the one who acted was Yuan Fangfei. Even if he wanted to flare up, he couldn't find it on his head. Imperial concubine Su glanced at him and didn't say anything. At this time, a palace servant hurriedly came to report, Nyang Wang Ya. Wang Fei sent someone to report that Qian Shijie is having a fit and is about to give birth. Li Hongming didn't have any reaction, but Imperial concubine Su was slightly startled and almost dropped her teacup. However, she quickly calmed down, except for the slight abnormality in her eyes. Okay, don't stay here anymore. Leave the palace as soon as possible. After the child is born, just send someone to report to me. How could Li Hongming not know what his Mu Fei was thinking? Although he got married relatively late, it had been several years, and he only had 2 legitimate daughters. There weren't many women in his harem, but there weren't few either. He had a lot of work to do, so he didn't have much time to go to the harem. But even so, there shouldn't be no movement in the harem except for Wang Fei. But in reality, his Wang Fei really didn't do anything to the women in the harem. Qian Shi was personally picked by his virtuous Wang Fei. Out of respect for his Wang Fei, she only slept with him for a few nights. Unexpectedly, she really got pregnant. Imperial concubine Su looked indifferent on the surface. No one knew what she was thinking, but Li Hongming knew it all too well. Their brothers ranked in the top 10, except for the long-dead 2nd and 8th, the unmarried 6th, as well as the recently married 9th and 10th, including the sickly 5th, all had sons. He was the only one who didn't. Just from this point, his confidence was much weaker. In a situation where many princes were married, it was basically impossible to let a childless prince be the crown prince. Imperial concubine Su could compete with the empress, but when it came to grandchildren, she couldn't raise her head. Therefore, Imperial concubine Su actually cared a lot about Qian Shi's child. In comparison, Li Hongming didn't really care because he knew very well that in this life and death battle, it wasn't important at all whether he had a son or not. According to normal circumstances, the throne couldn't be his. This was destined from the beginning, so why should he waste so much time on those women? When he ascended the throne in the future, he could have any woman he wanted and as many sons as he wanted. Then this official will withdraw first. Li Hongming had just left the palace and got on the carriage when his personal attendant told him, Wang Ya, Jin Xinwang has been found. Shang'an, oh? He's really lucky. Regardless of whether Li Hongyuan was alive or dead, Li Hongming didn't have much of a reaction. However, he knew from his Mu Fei's words and actions that Li Hongyuan being alive was far more beneficial than harmful to him. Therefore, even though he really wanted him to die, he still hoped that he would live until the Chang Emperor passed away, live until he successfully ascended the throne. Li Hongming knew that there were things he didn't know. However, on the surface, Li Hongyuan made enemies on all sides, and even if he was messing with him, he didn't show any mercy. But overall, the losses he caused to others were far greater than him. The trouble he created for him might have made people gnash their teeth in hatred at the time, but in reality, it didn't matter. Tell Bin Wang the details. Yes. After Jin Xinwang was injured and fell into the water, he was fished out by a large white ape not long after. Wait, large white ape? Are you sure? Li Hongming asked incredulously. The news from White Dragon Temple indeed said so. Many people have seen that large white ape. It's taller than a person and has extraordinary strength. It's said that the large white ape was raised by a traveling doctor. That person just happened to enter White Dragon Mountain to pick herbs some time ago. That white ape might have stayed with the traveling doctor for a long time. Not to mention that it understood human nature, it could also help. I heard that it wasn't the first time it saved someone. The large white ape followed them into the mountain. Perhaps it recovered some of its original nature and scuttled all over the mountain. When it saw Jin Wang who had fallen into the water, it brought him back. That traveling doctor's temperament was strange, and he didn't fear the powerful. He clearly saw that Jin Wang's identity was not ordinary, but he didn't interrupt the journey. Instead, he let the large white ape carry Jin Wang into the depths of the mountain. Thus, Jin Wang didn't follow the river downstream. The people sent by His Majesty couldn't find Jin Wang. When that traveling doctor returned from picking herbs, Jin Wang followed him out. The injuries on his body were already much better. In that case, Ben Wang's sixth brother's luck really isn't ordinary. There's no problem with that traveling doctor's identity? Replying to Wang, yeah, there's no problem. Many people have seen him, especially those poor commoners. Many people have received his kindness. Li Hongyuan pondered. Right now, he wasn't sure if it was the truth or if everything was arranged by his Fu Huang so that Li Hongyuan could reasonably appear in front of people. If it was the latter, then this line was arranged too long. His Fu Huang was able to predict the future to this extent? After thinking about it carefully, Li Hongming was more inclined towards the former. Where is sixth brother? Where is he now? Replying to Wang Ye, Jin Wang is currently recuperating at White Dragon Temple. It's not known when he will return. His wedding is next month. There are still many things that require him to be busy. He won't stay at White Dragon Temple for too long. That's right. Does he know that Fu Huang has bestowed a marriage to him? Perhaps he knows, or perhaps no one told him. After all, the imperial edict wasn't directly sent to White Dragon Temple. Ben Wang had forgotten. Ben Wang's future sixth sister-in-law is also at White Dragon Temple. Also, Ruan Fong Fei. Li Hongyuan smiled with interest. These two people should already know about this marriage. Sunny Jia might be completely disheartened, but Ruan Fong Fei's heart was full of admiration for the man that Sunny Jia didn't want to marry. Bumping into each other like this, even a woman like Ruan Fong Fei would be jealous, right? Once this kind of jealousy accumulated, it would be very easy to carry out some of his plans if he were to provoke her a little. The people in the plan were all at White Dragon Temple. That was a good place to carry out the plan. Unfortunately, it was already too late. If he knew about this earlier, it would be good. Next time, it wouldn't be so easy to find such a good opportunity. However, where there's a will, there's a way. Haste makes waste, especially when Fu Huang's body was still very healthy. He still had time to make arrangements. Wang Ye, the road ahead is blocked? What's the matter? Go take a look.
Yes.
The guard who went to inquire soon returned. Wang Ye, the carriage of great elder Princess Wangzhu collided with that of Luo Shangshu's granddaughter. Luo Shangshu's granddaughter? Do you know who she is? Li Hongming thought of the Luo family's third daughter last time. Wang Ye, it's the fourth daughter of the Luo family. Li Hongming pondered for a moment, got up, lifted the curtain, and got out of the carriage in person. What's the matter? Third cousin? The curtain of the carriage with the mark of great elder princess's mansion was lifted, revealing a 7- or 8-year-old girl. Third cousin, why are you here? Yu Yao. Li Hongming reached out to touch her head. Cousin has something to do and has to go back. What's the matter? The girl immediately pouted her mouth discontentedly, lifted the curtain wider, and motioned Li Hongming to look inside the carriage. The carriage broke my colored glass lamp. I came out today to get this lamp. I was going to give it to my mother as a birthday gift. Li Hongming saw that the beautiful colored glass lamp in the carriage was indeed broken in a corner, and then glanced at the pitiful figure in front of the carriage, biting her lips. Her clothes were not bad. Luo Shangshu's family was rich, but as far as he knew, the fourth daughter was the daughter of a concubine of Luo Shangshu, who was not very favored by Luo Shangshu, so their family was not very rich. This lamp cost at least 2,000 or 3,000 taels of silver. In addition, it seemed that the son of a concubine of Luo Shangshu was very close to his eldest brother's people. Li Hongming's mind had already turned a few times. At this moment, He saw that the girl was looking at him with expectant eyes. Li Hongming smiled comfortingly and then turned to old lady Yu Yao. This thing is very precious. It will break if you touch it. The carriage is not a good place to play with it. This girl definitely did not do it on purpose. How about this? Cousin will give you a more beautiful one, and for cousin's sake, let's forget about this matter. How about it? Old lady Yu Yao was still hesitant. A qualified noble lady should be magnanimous. Okay, but cousin, remember to give me the colored glass lamp. Okay, I'll send it to you later. Li Hongming smiled gently. Then cousin, I'll go back first. I've been out for a long time. Mother will be worried. Okay, please send my regards to Aunt. I've been busy recently. I'll pay my respects to Aunt on her birthday. Old lady Yu Yao nodded. After sending old lady Yu Yao away, Li Hongming took 2 steps towards Luo Jingying. Luo Jingying hurriedly saluted. Greetings to Wang Ya. No need to be so polite. Li Hongming raised his hand. Miss, are you hurt? Thank you, Wang Ya. Chinu is fine. Li Hongming nodded. Go back early. It's best to have a doctor take a look. Luo Jingying whispered a yes. Wang Ya. Chinu will find a way to compensate Wang Ya for the colored glass lamp. Will Ben Wang be short of a colored glass lamp? Go back early. Li Hongming turned and got into the carriage. When the curtain of the carriage was put down, he saw Luo Jingying staring at him in a daze. He smiled softly. Unsurprisingly, he saw the other party blushing shyly. When the curtain fell, the smile on his face carried a bit of pride and sarcasm. Pride because he was always successful with women, but the irony was that these women were all the same. Li Hongming returned to the Rue Prince mansion. Although he didn't care if he had a son or not, it would be good to have one. After all, some of the officials who followed him had some opinions on this point. He didn't go overboard, but still asked indifferently. Knowing that it would take a long time, Li Hongming turned and went to the study. He would inform him when the child was born. Princess Rue was waiting outside the delivery room. Knowing that her Wang Ya wouldn't come, she didn't feel happy, but rather sad. She had been married to Prince Rue for a few years now, and everyone knew that they were deeply in love with each other. Being able to marry Prince Rue was a blessing accumulated from 8 lifetimes. The Gong Prince's mansion looked peaceful and quiet, but that was because the Gong Prince was afraid of his father-in-law. The Gong Qin Princess consort looked like she was living a happy life, but who knew how bitter it was inside? She was the best. Prince Rue was full of wisdom, an elegant gentleman, kind and capable, and was valued by the emperor, so he was very considerate to her. Princess Rue had a smile on her face, but her heart was bitter. Prince Rue didn't have much of a smile when he returned to the mansion. He was always busy. Rather than saying that he didn't get close to women, it was better to say that he didn't have time. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.